I suppose you could say it's pretty chaotic. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, it opens to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact. Four Nights of the Apocalypse. I got 15 minutes to tell you how I'm feeling about it, whether I'm positive, whether I'm negative, whether I'm somewhere in between. So let me start this 15-minute timer right now and bang. So overall, I'm feeling massively positive about the current state of Four Nights, even if I am definitely a little bit worried, and it's mainly because of my general uncertainty with where the plot is going because of this man. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of the Chaos Knights getting amps. I think that's actually a really good thing. Honestly, I was kind of hoping they wouldn't need monster amps. I was hoping their base amps would be enough, especially considering we went out of our way to buff Pelgard and Ironside with the base Chaos buffs, which obviously did wonders for Beltreep and World Dane. But at the same time, I understand the Knights are super duper cracked. You want to show off the Knights are super duper cracked, and ultimately you can't really introduce like another tier beneath the Chaos Knights, yet above the regular Camelot Holy Knights. So best way to do that is having them super job of the Chaos Knights themselves, and very specifically the four evils. So they need to get a Chaos amp to actually be relevant against the actual rest of the Four Knights. And notably, their domination of the Four Knights, including leading directly to, I guess, Varkey's kind of second pseudo-death, which has to get glazed over pretty quickly, because, you know, he's already dead. And also, you know, they were in the middle of a crazy battle. I think is actually pretty neat. And I think this gets to flex the best of both of Nakaba's greatest qualities. I think Nakaba is a fantastic character designer, very specifically monster designer or slash armor. I feel like Nakaba's monsters and his armor are like some of the best designs, period. So like he's really good with that. So I think he gets to flex that here, while at the same time still flexing at least some degree of his character writing, but not necessarily with the four evils themselves, more so with the characters' reactions to the four evils. Seeing our characters despair at their own weakness once again was actually really, really cool. And seeing the four evils, if seemingly barely, keep an aspect of their humanity as they are turned into nothing more than literal monsters that are drastically beyond their original base state. It's peak. You know, I'm telling you, it was straight gas. Do I feel bad for Tristan? Yes, that boy gets done the dirtiest every single time. Nakaba, why on earth did you have to bisect the poor boy? I know he's fine, but still, why? So ultimately, that's really, really cool. The return of Despair Percy. Like, hey, I don't know about y'all, but I love me some Despair Percy. So you know what, boy, happy to see my boy, my son, my baby boy. I'm so happy to have him back. If only do Rioting Hierophant, and like obviously we're not gonna see it again for a while, but still, that was really, really cool to see. And Gawain even popping in the buff form. Overall, this real cool. Real cool. I like the work for the cast, I saw it does for the characters, and like seeing our characters go through despair and experience a pretty hard loss. In fact, realistically, their first hard loss since the time skip, which has been going on for a while. It's weird to think about, but we've been in time skip for like 2 years? Is it going on 3? I think it's gonna be like 3 this upcoming year. We've been in the time skip for a little bit. So giving our 3 Knights a very difficult, meaty, hefty, juicy, scrumbly jumpsters hard loss is a good decision. Once again, essentially reestablishing the threat of the narrative, right? The way the Four Knights were moving, especially once they got Tristan back, and even realistically once they got Gawain back, and even realistically once they got Percy back, it was looking a little bit rough for Camelot, dog. Like, they may have been cooked. But of course, there's a law of clone exchange, right? This is a story written by Nakaba Suzuki. So the heroes can't be down that bad for that long. And that led to the return of a certain somebody, Lancelot. Now, let me be clear. Lancelot is still goated. Always will be goated. He's one of my favorite characters that Nakaba's ever written and or introduced. I feel very bad for the boy because if he had the Jericho or the Guinevere stuff, I think I'd be like willing to push most of it aside in my mind. In fact, he has both. Nakaba, how did you like? Bond only had the one. He had a lane, which still looks kind of funky to this day. But like, regardless, he only had one. Then he pushed aside Jericho. But you had to give him both. You had to slander my man with both, or saddle my man with both, to slander my man with both. That's absolutely insane. But regardless, he's so auriful, it overwhelms all of it. He is, after all, what my glorious, legendary, juicy Oralobber himself says, the strongest man there is. And that is the blessing and the curse of Lancelot. And it does make me wonder about the chaos of Four Nights that's upcoming. So, naturally, maybe like, Pencil Man, what's the problem? You love Lance. You love that he's broken. He's using White Deer still in a very impressive fashion, and he's finally showing off another application of Hazy Moon with, you know, where is it, all the way at the end of the chapter, where is it? Get it to me, the Moon of the 18. What's the problem? The problem is Lance is here. He's here. He's here. And the four evils aren't comp still. Now, don't get me wrong. Would it make sense for the four evils to be comp when Lancelot pre-Sacred Treasure, pre-2-year time skip, pre-even using his aura and or his natural right hand was absolutely dog-walking Arthur? No, it wouldn't make a lick of sense. And notably, with how Hazy Moon seems to function, it only makes sense that he would hard counter a bunch of magic merchants, magic merchants, and the one stat character in Pelguard. It makes absolute sense that he would hard counter him, body bag him, and drastically outstat them. So it makes perfect sense, but we run into the same issue we ran into in part 1. Well, I don't know. If this guy is here, what are the rest of the knights for? And remember, the big thing about current... I can see I'm going to make a whole separate video on Lance, so I'm not going to go too deep into it here. But the big thing about current Lance is that he's still a baby. And by a baby, I mean he doesn't have his wings. Now, obviously, he's a fairy human hybrid. Maybe he won't grow his wings. We know that some of King and Diane's kids just don't have wings, while some of them do have wings. Some of them have pointed ears. Lance doesn't have any of that. But regardless, it's very likely that White Deer isn't his final or actual legitimate sacred treasure. It's a old dull blade that he's using just because it won't break when he uses his magic. He's probably going to get either a spirit sword or a spirit spear. We have dubs nearby. And on top of that, he doesn't have his wings yet. Meaning, and he's only 18. So he is so much higher to go. But the four evils are somewhere around here with the knights, at least according to Lance. And then Lance is up... I can't even reach how high Lance is. Lance is actually in, like, a different dimension because he's up there fighting with chaos. So, like, that's my one concern. I'm like, dude. It, like, now comes to the question that always appears whenever a character is too strong on the protagonist side. How are we getting rid of him? How are we getting rid of him? Or how is the opposing side meant to deal with him? Because there are a couple ways you can take care of an overpowered character when they're on the protagonist side and on the antagonist side. Number one, you nerf him, which I just don't think will happen to Lance. I think nerfing Lance would be really weird and specific, and it just hasn't been set up just yet, so I don't think nerfing Lance is the way. Removing him from the plot, which just wouldn't really make sense considering we just went out of our way to reintroduce him. He was already removed from the plot. Or 3, traitor him. For one reason or another, or blackmail him to make sure he isn't that powerful. And while Guinevere is a bargaining chip, how much the bargaining chip matters is unknown, but we do have the start of part 2 sort of leading to the idea that Lance will betray everybody, because it's presumed to be him wielding that spear that stabbed into his own daddy. But then again, that could have been fake Lance, but then again, the fake Lance going exist in Canada? I don't actually know. There's so much vagueness around that opening scene in part 2 that I just don't really have a clear-cut idea. So with that being the case, overall, with that thrown into the mix, how do I feel about the current state of Four Knights? I still think it's very, very solid, if not very, very good. With what Lance does throughout this chapter, right? Because this isn't just a Lance showcase chapter. This is very specifically Nakaba working at his best with dualities. He very specifically goes out of his way to have Lance explain, hey, everybody, all of you could have actually beat these guys if you were actually locked in. He brings up the idea of Tristan's magic resistance / immunity thanks to his demon clan blood on top of his full counters. He talks about Percy's sheer raw power through his regeneration, his light spirit healing, and how he could have tanked this and beaten Pelguard. We have obviously Gawain and her abilities being able to hard counter someone like Ironside with raw stats and magical potency, and Beltreep, very specifically, I'll give Beltreep this, or Damon, whichever you want to call him, because this is his brother. He very specifically is noted to be the one that, you know, yeah, he'd be tough for you guys, which implies that they at least need to 3v1 him in particular while he's amped, which is all perfectly fine. Lance is here for that. So Nakaba is doing his best to kind of replicate what he did with Meliodas for a short while after he was resurrected. And if you're wondering, Pencil, what on earth does that mean? Remember, when Meliodas was first resurrected, he was like tiers above every relevant threat. Like, he just was, to the point where he was bullying Fraudrin with a clone, he absolutely bodied Montsbeat and Derriere, and no other commandments stood threat to him. He was legit a demon amongst demons. So what did Nakaba do? He plucked him out the plot and made him evil. But that's the thing. He's showing how the other characters are still relevant to the main antagonist group, or at least a major portion of the major antagonist group in the Four Evils, by having Lance explain that they all could deal with it. It'd just be, you know, harder for them than it is for him. Just like Meliodas was used many times in original Seven-Deadly-Sins to show that, you know, yeah, the other sins can definitely handle this. They handled Melascula, they handled Esterosa, they handled, even like Zeldris got handled by other characters that weren't named Meliodas. Of course, Meliodas was an antagonist at that point, but so regardless, there are many other characters that got handled by characters that were not named Meliodas and Escanor, depending on which fight it was, where it was going on. So that's kind of the same thing that Nakaba is doing here. However, the only thing that has me excited yet concerned is, unlike with Meliodas, where you can definitely, especially on a reread, see that, yeah, Meliodas is probably going to go evil just for like the sake of the plot. He's a little bit too strong. I don't really see a vision on how Nakaba gets rid of Lance without doing something with Guinevere, which just hasn't been developed enough yet, at least in my opinion. There are a lot of things that Nakaba did over the 2-year time skip that are heavily implied, but like, all we have is implication. And especially with all the 4 of the Knights regathered, I'm assuming after this point, if Arthur himself doesn't fall out the sky being like, hey, God of War, stop it, stop bullying my people, and or if the Chaos Knights don't, 4 evils don't get another super giga amp by super mutating into chaos and losing all the rest of their humanity, then I'm assuming we're probably going to get into like a little bit of a flashback boost, or not flashback boost, because obviously there's no way to boost all these characters, but there's a bunch of stuff that happened off screen that very specifically for both Percy and Lancelot, our main character, and kind of sort of our Deuteragonist, that I feel like now, if any time, is the time to go into that. And that is what has me excited about the current state of 4 Knights. We are wrapping up an arc that actually took a little bit. If you look at the start of when the Gladiator Festival began and where it actually got, it's been like 50 chapters since this arc started. So winding down this arc with Lance's reintroduction, reconnecting all the 4 Knights is very exciting. I'm very happy and interested to see them all travel together. I'm interested to see how everything's going to be dealt with from this point on, considering how, like, for lack of a better word, how chaotic everything's been getting. And also, I'm happy to feel, or at least I'm guessing, once again, who knows, Nakaba may never tell us what happened over that 2-year time skip for both Lance and especially Percy. But I feel like now's the time, if there ever was a time, to really begin to unwind some of the mystery around these characters and further establish the world. And that's the one thing I give Four Knights above Seven Deadly Sins so far. It's been very, very good at fleshing out not just its characters, which I give Seven Deadly Sins a lot of credit for, but also its world and the characters in the world and how they react to certain things. The only things I'm uncertain about, and notably in a good way, is the fate of the 4 evils themselves. I'm not sure if this final panel of 3205, I was thinking of a different manga, I'm not sure how this, like, second to last panel of 205 with all of the 4 evils not just bleeding but also having these dark spirals come out of them. I'm not sure if that's meant to represent the chaos inside of them that's being ripped out or not, but ultimately, their fate is the most interesting to me because of, obviously, all the character dynamics that play with them versus the 4 Knights. Obviously, it's mainly Percy-based and a little bit Gawain-based. Tristan kind of doesn't really have a vibe, except, you know, being the grandson of the Demon King, which may probably have certain characters in the 4 evils feeling a certain type of way about things. But that's the thing. That uncertainty with them and the possibility of Arthur popping up at any second, that kind of unknown, yet it's weird. Is unknown really the appropriate word there? Because I feel like we kind of know. No, I think actually unknown is a good word here. That unknown variability of the current narrative, where it can branch off in a bunch of different directions, yet most of them would feel logical, is very, very good. And while I am still, you know, in my heart of hearts, just like it's a weird esoteric worry. It's like a worry that I know I really shouldn't be feeling because I do trust Nakaba Suzuki. He's worked around overpowered characters before. Like, I don't know, Lance just in a way that I know some will appreciate, Lance just feels a little bit different. I have no idea how he's going to work around this man. In a good way. I feel like Lance could go in 15 different directions and I'd be fine with any of them as long as they aren't overly freaky. But with that being the case, that's a good thing. Percy and the rest of the knights getting some sort of power up is definitely needed. I'm interested to see how they're going to do that. I highly doubt they're going to go into another training after this, but that's going to be interesting to see. The 4 evils in their face is going to be interesting to see. The rest of the Percy platoon and now the Tristan platoon, and well, no, not now the Tristan platoon, Percy platoon, the Tristan platoon, and now the Gawain platoon with Ballin and possibly Garrett. Like, there's so much happening, and I didn't even really touch on those characters, right? Like, there still is the whole loose end of all of those characters, you know, running around. Theodora, Izzy, like, there's so many new characters introduced, so much stuff is up in the air. We have such a large traveling group, presumably. We still need to find out what's happening with Gother's actual physical body. There's so much going on that even my slightest concerns about Lance being a little bit too strong can definitely be washed under the rug. We're like, sure, they're there, they're present. I am worried. I'm kind of scaredy-wary. My toes are curled, but cautiously. I'm still leaning positive. I'm still leaning heavily positive. Like, I'm like 0.5% negative because I'm still too big a fan of Lance. I'll be completely. I'm way too big a fan of Lance. I'm way too big of the ore farming. And obviously, this is just another case of seeing Nagapa flex his writing skills, because he's gonna have to write around Lance. It's not a matter of if. It's not a matter of why. It's a matter of how he's going to write around Lance. And seeing Nakaba do the song and dance again after years of experience, and very specifically with a character that is so integral to our main cast in their current state of power, I'm liking it a whole lot, and I'm pretty excited. But, of course, I'm out of time. So, please let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you've been all the way to the end of this video, please leave... Did I have a password on the last video I recorded? I don't think I did. Ruh-roh spaghetti-o. But if you made it all the way to the end... Actually, no. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't actually remember. But if you made all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave down to the bone in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that notifications so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, we even have a page down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. So now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get... I think it's just looped that. Gosh darn, this is what happened. We are recording sequence. My outro gets messed up. But one thing is what you're watching. Once again, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, Brandon Payne, J2MA, Guillaume, Buddha Ura, Alex Kenny, Enzo, Swift Strike, Autumn Mornings Lazo, Super Flame Zero, Yuki Ally, Azo2404, and G Prosper. And I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons: Victor Raji, Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Dread Owen, and A+A. I'd like to give a big old thank you to our Ink tier members: Austin Wimberly, Euchia, and Shrimpo the Shrimp. And I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members: Jay Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Waki Munoz and Waki Munoz.